Wow, everyone, the big trade is here. The Toronto Raptors have officially acquired Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans, and in this video we'll break down if this was the right move for the organization. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, and if you're new to the channel, this is where we give you dedicated Raptors content and videos like this and live streams on the channel. If you enjoy what you see along the way, then make sure you do hit that like button and subscribe for so much more for the rest of the season and beyond. And that beyond looks a lot different now than it did just a week ago, as the Raptors, as I said, have acquired Brandon Ingram for the New Orleans Pelicans. It started as some rumblings, and then those rumblings grew. There was reports. And then all of a sudden, here we are. Shams Charania was the first to report the trade officially, with the Toronto Raptors sending over, amazingly, the Toronto Raptors were able to get this trade done by not having to give up either of RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickley, and they didn't have to give up any of their own first-round picks. Wow. When I was projecting what this trade could look like a week ago, I was worried I was setting the bar, setting the price too low on Brandon Ingram. But in the end, the Raptors come through even lower than what I thought was already low. The Raptors send over Bruce Brown, an expiring contract, Kelly Olynyk, a not expiring contract, so they actually get off the Kelly Olynyk salary for next season, which clears up space to re-sign Brandon Ingram, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. But the pick that was sent out, look, you can't get him for nothing here. They sent out the 2026 first-round pick via the Indiana Pacers, and also a second-round pick. That second-round pick reportedly is Toronto's own 2031 second-round pick. So yeah, we are toying with what exactly this trade could look like, and a lot of the fan base was toying with if this is the right move for the team, and I'll give you my answer straight up. This is a win for the Raptors here. This is a win for the Raptors. I was skeptical about trading for Brandon Ingram. I was skeptical about what this trade could look like when Chris Haynes said that essentially the Raptors' trade for Brandon Ingram was imminent. Nerves started to swell all over myself, wondering, man, if we overpaid, this could really be bad for the team. But, man, what a buy low spot for Ingram. Bruce Brown was a player that there was reports the Raptors would have to buy out, would have to buy him out. That's just salary fill. That's just expiring contract. Kelly Olynyk, you could look at with a year and a half left on his deal. He's making about $13 million next season. You could, legitimately look at that as a negative asset that, it was a penalty that the New Orleans Pelicans had to take him on. So to give away Kelly Olynyk, you don't have to pay that salary next year, and you gave away Kelly Olynyk instead of Chris Boucher. Now, by the time this video comes out, maybe Chris Boucher can get traded, but you can still trade Chris Boucher, and if not, that salary comes off the books at the end of the season. You give away the Pacers pick, which I'll admit, guys, I made a video saying how bad the Pacers are playing, how good that pick is going to look a month ago. A dumb video that obviously crushed in views and got so many views. Thank you for that. But the way the Pacers are playing lately, it's looking like this Pacers team is a bit on the up. You'd guess that'd be a pick in the 20 to 25 range in the first round next year. And a 2031 second, I'm completely fine with that. The Raptors really didn't give up anything super significant to make this trade happen. Masai Ujiri, for years and years and years, he has toyed with these buy low spots on star players, and finally one does come off here. And as much as this is good value for the team to get a player like Brandon Ingram, was it the right move for the organization based on where they are currently structured? A fair question to ask. You've got Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey coming up in this draft, and myself going into this, potentially this trade happening, was thinking I'm on Team Tank. But I think when you see what the Raptors had to give up to make this trade happen, you almost had to do it. You were getting a player of Brandon Ingram's level, and you really didn't have to give much. It's just something the Raptors had to do, and assessing their probabilities for the tank and their probabilities for the draft lottery, what that could look like, decided it was worth possibly foregoing that tank to make this trade happen. And even still, Brandon Ingram's been injured. You can still possibly find a way to manipulate your team and tank for the rest of the year. But, with a team that has Quickly, Barrett, Ingram, Barnes, Pirtle, that team's probably going to win some games. In the bad Eastern Conference, it feels as though the tank has been sacrificed to make this deal happen. And honestly, again, with what the Raptors had to give up, I am very comfortable with that. Brandon Ingram is the Raptors have been looking for the guy who can self-create, that self-creation specialist, that scorer. The Raptors have finally gotten that type of player. And I know there maybe is some health concerns, but he's 27 years old. He's going to turn 28 much later on this year. This is a type of guy that I'm pretty thrilled with the Raptors getting at such a buy low spot. I just can't believe how little the Raptors paid to get Brandon Ingram in this situation. I know we've completely shifted the direction of the team kind of by making this trade, but this is a pretty good bet to make. I don't think the fit is fantastic with Scotty Barnes, but it's not a bad fit either, just to have that scoring pressure taken off of Barnes. So maybe you can hyperfixate on some of the other stuff that makes him such a good player. And hey, taking some attention away from Barnes could also help with his scoring and help with his efficiency to go on top of it. So for me, I like this trade a lot. People have asked, why didn't you just keep Siakam if all of a sudden you were going to pivot and trade for Brandon Ingram? Look at how the Siakam situation turned out. Like I said so many times leading up to that Siakam trade, the Raptors front office had backed themselves down a corner. They dug themselves this big hole with Siakam, an expiring contract, and we were pretty unthrilled with the return the Raptors got for Siakam. They got the 3 first-round picks, the 19th overall pick, which would become Jacoby Walter. They got the late first-round pick, which they traded for Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk, and the 2026 Pacers pick alongside Bruce Brown. Guys, when you look at it this way with what the Raptors used those assets for, they essentially traded Pascal Siakam, who, by the way, is 3 years older than Brandon Ingram. They traded Pascal Siakam, who turns 31 in a couple months, who I love still, but turns 31 in a couple months. They got Brandon Ingram, Ochai Agbaji, Jacoby Walter, and a year of Olynyk and Brown on the team. They got Brandon Ingram, Ochai Agbaji, and Jacoby Walter for Pascal Siakam, essentially. I said, I'm not thrilled with what the front office has done, but, they've dug themselves a hole. It's on them to dig themselves out, and they've kind of dug themselves out a little bit with this trade, a lot of it with this trade. To pull something like this off and to end up getting that valuation out of the Siakam situation, honestly, it's pretty impressive. I really feel like Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, the front office, kind of cooked with this trade. They had to buy low at this spot. That's just the value you're getting out of Brandon Ingram here, a guy who can give you 22 to 24 points per game, pretty efficiently do so as well. A lot of those shots coming from self-creation setting as well. That's an exciting prospect. And I know Brandon Ingram is on an expiring contract. Some people be concerned that this is an expiring contract. What if he leaves at the end of the season? The Raptors will get his bird rights by making this trade. And it's kind of the same situation we had 2 years ago when the Raptors traded for Jakob Poeltl. You have his bird rights, and look, you're not making this trade without having some internal discussions with Brandon Ingram that, there's a commitment to sign him at the end of the season. Is there a commitment for him to stay in Toronto? It was there for Poeltl. I think that's going to remain here today. Honestly, it's not a complete 0% chance, but it's something that I really believe you don't have to worry about. There's going to be confidence that he re-signs with the Raptors. The question mark will be, what does that contract look like? And honestly, guys, it's probably going to be a max. It's probably going to be, at the minimum, very close to a max contract. But Brandon Ingram's a good player. He's just in the midst of his prime, getting started with his prime here. And you've got, if you sign him to max, you have Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes starting their max contracts at the same time, locked in with this team, and you have every single one of your own picks to make moves with. You have tradable contracts to make moves with. Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes to build with, and all of your picks to help build around them, including this year's pick, which you can still maybe even end up getting a lottery pick and a good player to fill in the cracks. You've got your top pieces. Now the job is to fill in the cracks, and that could be difficult. Look, The Raptors can't really afford to pay Brandon Ingram the max with the roster as it's currently constructed. You've got Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, and Pirtle. Pirtle's all of a sudden essential to this team going forward as that rim protecting center. Quickly and Barrett's future now a little bit up in the air. Like, I was happy neither of them were included in this deal, but the Raptors, I saw that they're a second apron team if they give Brandon Ingram the max. So they're going to need to do a little bit of work financially to make this thing work long term, or at least for next season, and fit wise. Like, it's an intriguing starting five, but it's missing defense and it's missing spacing. That's going to have to be provided by the team through those trades. RJ Barrett could be sacrificed to make that happen down the line, but he's here for the time being. And the Raptors, I'm sure, aren't making this trade without some sort of idea of how they're going to make this work financially. So, like, overall on this trade here, like, I'm happy, man. It's been 3 years of uncertainty. Like, what are we doing? Where is this going? 3 years of it, like, of just not knowing what this team is doing. And I finally, like, I feel lighter. I feel like a weight has lifted off my shoulders, like almost a monkey off the back type of thing. Like, this trade, I understand won't be everybody's cup of tea, but again, having all of your own picks, having Barnes and Ingram to build with going forward, it just feels really satisfying, and I feel really happy that we're finally in a spot where we can just move forward, and we've got something that we can believe in, that we can build with, that we can progress with going forward without the uncertainty of like what are we actually doing here. Obviously, some questions still need to be answered, like, how do you get spacing to this team? More spacing, because Brandon Ingram can shoot, but you need more floor space. You need more defense to this team. I'm just so happy with how I feel about this team right now. Barnes is going to continue to develop. Brandon Ingram's a stud, great player. There's options to move things around going forward. I'm sure there's something in place, a plan in place from the front office to address these concerns I'm labeling out here financially. Who knows about the fit stuff, but financially, I'm sure there's stuff in place to make this work. And we still have all our picks to do it as well. I think this is a win for the Raptors. I really do. They really didn't give up much to make this trade happen. And, you could say, like, last thing here, like, on the tank front, like, I was on board with a tank, but, the Raptors analyzed here that their best chance of getting talent next to Barnes is this trade here. Because even if you have your pick and you land in like the 5 to 10 range, which would have been the most likely scenario for the Raptors, you're hoping that draft pick becomes near as good as Brandon Ingram is. And now you've just got Brandon Ingram, and you've got him paired to Scottie as he's working his game, and it's already getting good. I think this makes sense for the Raptors. I like this trade. I'm with it. I'm behind it. I'm behind this team. It's maybe sacrificed the tank. The East sucks. The Raptors probably good enough to make the play-in tournament now, but I am behind this trade. I like it. I think this is a win for the Raptors. What do you think? Was this a winning trade for the Raptors? Give me all of your thoughts and opinions on this deal in the comments down below. So much more content is on the way here at Amateur Sports. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss out. Make sure you do hit that like button. I mean, guys, I'm staying up till like 2:30 making this video for you guys. 2:30 in the morning. I'm tired, but I'm putting in that work. That deserves a like. Support the channel, and we'll see you again next time for another piece of content, wherever it may be.